You're now using,
Who's 10th?
apparently Kai.
Oh, okay.
I'm on the wrong count. I'll be right back.
It's all good.
Curious what 10th is.
It's dark suits. To broadcast to everybody. All right, so this one should be pretty short. Well, it could be short anyway. So, Justin, you added some things to the Angular. Is that what we're looking at? All right.
Yeah.
Um,
And if we have time, it's not that hard. I'll go over the dev build process.
okay.
So okay, guys. So I don't know. One thing I definitely recommend everybody subscribe to NG newsletter. I don't know if you all aren't. So I'm getting a lot of my stuff because they're definitely pumping out articles like crazy to help people with migration. I posted 2 of them in here, which I thought were useful out of some things, because one of them I liked was that it's kind of telling us what we can do in Angular 1, especially since we're going to try to get Angular 1.5 in this next release, and 1.6 is already in development. Some things that we can do inside of our, when we go to refactor anything for Angular 2, it's an easy fix versus like, I got to do this and this and this. So that's kind of one of the things I wanted to bring up. We could talk about the practices I brought up on this, but definitely subscribe to NG newsletter. The other thing is, the other one I put on here, which I'd like for people to think about, is I know we talked about our module loading system as another part. Angular 2 has a new NG model way to do things. So I mean that's another thing that I just kind of was like, oh yeah, how we do our module loading, and I don't know how that will be impacted by this or not. I haven't looked at it enough to know. Yeah, he just happens to be a Telerik guy, but he does all Angular stuff. So, but yeah, so that was one of the things. But one of the things I think we could start doing now is looking at there's a couple of things with our obviously with the component stuff. I don't know. Has anybody looked at component?
Not since we brought it up like a year ago.
Yeah. So I think when we get 1.5 in, which will hopefully be relatively soon, once we get DC13 out, we should start defaulting to component. So I think one of the takeaways from that is one of the things I put on here is that what component does by default now is we had add a convention for naming everything and using controller as and stuff like that. But what Angular 2 does and what component does is it just calls everything $control. So that's when you're making it, you do a component, you don't really have to find a controller, isolate scope, controller as, all these things. You don't really have to do that. It's just kind of there by default. One of the things I think that we could do to reduce the pain is just when we're making new components right now, or if we're still doing directives, if we just alias everything like I did there, just whatever the controller has, it has $control. That makes it so that we don't have to go and update the views as well. So when we're making new components, it just will kind of fit right into the new Angular architecture. Like, yeah, we'll have to rework some of the JavaScript, but the view should inherently stay the same. You won't have to go do it. Of course, the simplify and replace could work, but it's just something that kind of can reduce a little bit of extra work that I think we can do.
So I only took a quick look at this. I didn't have a ton of time. My concern that I was not 100% sure on was we have our own custom component loading system as part of the One UI bit, and it's I'm not sure how compatible the two are.
Well, what are you referring to, component or module?
It's the,
Well, I'm asking in terms of Angular, because I know we have our own module loading system, but that's just us jamming stuff in and compiling as far as I knew underneath the master control.
it's the, yeah, I think it's that bit that I'm
Okay,
concerned
so-
about, where we don't use like the raw Angular 1-star module loading, where we call our custom compile phase.
Okay, so yeah, so let's back up. So components in Angular 1.5 are the replacement for directives.
Yep.
So that will keep working. The module thing is what I just brought up, and that's what I was saying. I don't know how our module loading system will work with new Angular module. So to what you're speaking about, I don't have an answer to that. That's why I brought this article up in the list,
I get you.
which is basically saying, we should look at that because we also had another card saying, let's look at the module system. As part of whatever we do for the module loading system, we need to look at how Angular 2 does it, because that may be a consideration for what our path is.
I thought the new component system also did some changes with the way that it loads up the templates.
Am
I a little bit on that one?
It might. I haven't
Okay.
done it too much. Again, this is why I'm bringing it up now. If we all can maybe start checking out components once we get 1.5 in,
Yep.
we can kind of figure that out. What I did here though was as a directive. So that little code snippet is basically saying all the stuff that we have as best practices, bind a controller as all these things, they're defaulted in component.
Yep.
So maybe checking out if we do the component pattern, if maybe we do run into those problems or not.
Yeah, the template side of it is the side that I was worried on that.
Okay.
Because we have our custom template loader thing.
This is just to save us time on the view changes.
On the view changes, yeah. So that was one thing I thought.
No, this is smart.
Yeah, because the view, because everything you see it now, it's like in the view, when you load your template, it's just dollar control.
And we can do this in, we can do this one before right now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, all right, cool.
What's Hive?
People may use that as my screen. Shit.
Okay. So you still got template or template URL, so that means it's still probably going to load the same normal way directive does. Use the template loader.
Yeah, but we have our custom template loader in the one UI side.
That's not true.
I thought we did.
No, we just load. We use the template URL through directive,
Okay.
and it just goes to that URL and grabs it.
So yeah,
Cool.
So yeah, that's one of the things I thought we should talk about. But I brought those two articles up because I thought they were important for other topics outside of Angular too. The other one that I thought was kind of cool was the other link I put in there. Patterns that we can use. He kind of shows what it looks like in Angular 2 and then how you can do it in Angular 1.
That's this one again?
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's one that I think everybody can probably go with and maybe take away something from it. The biggest thing I think we should probably get in line is I know we have like on link and on destroy and all these things. Maybe we can get our convention to follow in line with the Angular lifecycle hooks. So when we're making new stuff, instead of calling on destroy, I think there is like $1 on destroy or something like that, and there's on init. So instead of having our own things, maybe we can fall in line with what Angular is. So as we go through, again, it just reduces the amount of stuff we have to do if we actually do upgrade anything like that.
We have a corporate program for Angular,
I have no idea.
Yeah.
because that would be really useful. If you could get like a team account or something like that we could all use.
Okay.
Have you ever looked at the cost of something like that?
It's not bad for an individual, I guess. But just something that we already had.
The other thing is I was looking when I went through this thing. We're always talking about state, and state's on my mind right now because of my talk for tonight, which is giving me no end of anxiety. I feel it's going to be horrible, but one of the big things is in Angular 2, you know, they got rid of they didn't get rid of it, but two-way data bindings, you know, that's bad. So I know we have talked, we had a demo about Redux, which I unfortunately wasn't part of. We also use Flux and stuff like that, but I'm not sure how to incorporate that if it's available in 1.5 or it's going to be available in 1.6. Let me look. I think
components introduce one-way binding in 1.5.
Yeah. Okay. Great. That was my question. So if that would be another thing that we should maybe all like make a best practice, one-way bindings where applicable for all of our directives and stuff like that. So some ideas. I don't know if anybody had any opinions on these. I'm just kind of throwing them out there, getting them on you guys' mind. Just because, like I said, I subscribe to NG Newsletter and they're pumping out articles like crazy. And so I think that's probably because, you know, the Angular guys are probably trying to push people there. 1.5, you know, brought component, which is a major piece of Angular 2. 1.6 is, I think, redoing the routing, you know, that they're doing. So all that stuff like that.
If just maybe off topic, if I didn't realize if there's a 1.5 to 1.6, do we go to 1.6 before we go to 2.0?
Yeah, I think that's all going to be on the path.
Okay.
From what I've read, I don't know.
Okay.
I think, you know, these are all things that I think the Angular team realized they couldn't just force people to go to Angular 2, and so they brought major pieces in 1.5, and I think they're bringing major pieces in 1.6, but there's a better upgrade path.
Yeah, I sort of wonder if we've got even got the buy-in from the architecture on an Angular 2 upgrade path. Like, I know that we're all keen on it, but
yeah, we're a ways away from even talking about being able to upgrade to 2. I mean, I don't know. I see that we need to start being I don't know, using ES6, and we need to get at least to 1.5 and just kind of used to some of that stuff before we can even take that plunge. But with the breadth of this application as a whole, I'm not sure even like how. I guess I'm not really sure what the immediate return on such an investment would be, aside from developers getting to play with the new shiny toys.
Well, I'm not advocating, I think I said this last meeting, I'm not advocating we go to Angular 2. I'm saying small little things that we can do in a development world that we already agree is best practices. Like we're already doing what component does by default, you know, bind a controller as, conventions, lifecycle hooks. We're already doing all those things. They're just available now that we can do. And little small things, I think if we do ever make that decision, which we're not making that decision to go to Angular 2, we'll be better set up for it. If we don't go to Angular 2, I mean, we're going to be in a world of pain for whatever Vue engine we go to anyway. So it doesn't really matter. All I'm saying is Angular 2 is kind of consolidated the best practices from the Angular 1 world, and they're slowly giving them to you in little bits that I think we should adopt anyway, regardless of if we do that. I think obviously, yeah, ES6 is obviously huge, is what I'd love to get that in there. I'm just not bringing that up because that's not really an Angular thing. That's just a language thing. Do we just want to
I fully get all that. I was just kind of pointing to the fact Rob was saying that, you know, we all want to jump to Angular 2.
Personally, I don't.
I just want to make sure everybody's expectations around this conversation are realistic about that potential.
Sorry. Yeah, I was concerned about people saying, okay, let's skip one of the Angular 1-star upgrades because we're just going to jump to 2.
No. This is stuff that we can adopt now, that if we ever do make a decision, we're in a good spot, but even if we don't make that decision, it's still best practices for the Angular community. So those were two that I brought up. So yeah, I don't know what you guys think about that, at least that one practice right there. or if you guys need to mull it over. Because this is kind of what we're doing with our directives anyway right now. We're basically saying the controller.
I'm uneasy about using dollar controller as the label for directives currently.
Okay.
But I think it's something to be very aware of when we do start using components, and start shifting things over to components, that this is kind of the convention that's built in.
Yeah, just because I don't have any of your knowledge, what makes you wary about it?
Well, theoretically, you can still have directives on components. Generally speaking, the best practice is a component is kind of a standalone restrict E type element, where a directive is kind of the decorated restrict A attribute.
Okay.
So you could still have a component that has a directive on it, and that directive may potentially have a controller. I'm not sure if it would or not. And in that scenario, they can't both be dollar controller. The directive would need to have its own controller namespace still. So dollar controller is used on the component level because you can't really have components on components. And when there are subcomponents within a component, it's all isolated anyway. But you can have directives bound to components that those directives could potentially have controllers. And in that case, you can't use dollar controller as your directive controller namespace.
Okay.
At least that's my understanding of it. It's all relatively new for me as well, but I'm worried that we might box ourselves into that, saying, oh, all of our directives are just going to be converted to components at one point anyway. That may or may not ultimately be true.
Okay.
And if it's not, then the dollar controller conflict is going to become a real pain.
Okay, well then that's fine. I do say though that we can get rid of a line of code and just do controller as this instead of saying controller as another attribute. I mean, as another property on our directives, so we don't.
Yeah, I like that a lot.
Yeah.
Wait, say that again.
So right now, what we've been doing, we've been saying the controller is the namespace of the controller, like thx.module whatever, and then we have another property on the directive object, which is controller as. You can just drop that all together and just do that. So you could say thx.component.controller as whatever the controller.
You still need the full namespace of the.
Yeah, you still need the full namespace, yeah. But that at least drops something else out that you don't need to put in an already overly wieldy directive configuration. So. So I don't know if there's any takeaways from this, except to kind of bring it up and just kind of like get you guys aware of it. I do definitely recommend the NG newsletter thing. They come out once a week, and they usually have some pretty good articles and stuff like that. So, I mean, at least it keeps us in our background state.
Awesome. Well, thank you. It's good stuff. So that's going to stay where it is.
Yeah, I'm doing the ESLint POC right now. I got chastised, so I'm doing it.
Did you get chastised on the board?
No.
That's no.
I gave him shit because if you look at the comments on that ticket,
I just really don't like that.
Way down to the bottom, Justin is like, "Are we sure we want to do this?" And then, so we have an agreement, and then Justin, do we still want to do this? And then we have an agreement, and then Justin posted another comment, are we sure we want to do this? So it just seems like we've talked about it a handful of times.
I just didn't feel like it was good, but I'm doing it right now, so I'll have that out before the end of the day.
Doing really.
Yeah, exactly, So
we're doing it.
Yeah, we're doing it.
It's still just a proof of concept, though, right?
Are you guys sure while we're here in the meeting, are you sure you want to do it?
Okay.
All right, I'm doing that.
The one front end, do we want to dive into this?
Yeah, sure. Let me just bring up it's pretty, it's all on a README. Let me just bring up the bucket and we'll get there. You put that link in Slack.
Yes, I know One UI team. So we have to change over to tech One UI. We should do tech UI. Tech UI. Well, I'm just thinking.
Oh, for the,
It's all
That's
One
me,
UI.
that's me.
It's all One UI now, right?
Okay.
UI stuff really technical.
Put it on the board, we'll discuss it next time.
So I am sharing.
Oops. Where are you? Oh, wrong person.
Okay. So it's its own repo. So everything's out there. We actually reported all the history, so all the other history is still in here, so you can go see everything when it was back in THX. Everybody should be okay to use it. If you're not, let me know. I think I still have control over it. So the main thing is it's just an NPM module. So there's no Maven, there's no Palms, there's no anything like that. So straight up, all the stuff that we're used to. And we publish it to our Nexus Maven repository. So it's provided by the Nexus management tool. So it's not the one that NPM provides. It's their own thing. So it's bound to our Nexus instance. And it's also not, if you look at documentation online, like if you're trying to figure out something, it's not the full-blown, NPM private repository. So just be aware of that. If you're running into a weird issue, it may not be something that we can do because of how we're actually using this. It's just something that Nexus provides as another repository, So this has got all the build tasks in it, but the thing is it's not like we normally do. So there's no Git flow. It's normal branching strategies is normal. Check out with your thing and do your work. But one of the things we wanted to kind of follow the semantic versioning, but we also kind of wanted some useful messages, because with useful messages, we're able to automatically do some things and build up like a change log, so we can kind of see some of the stuff that went over. And so we kind of get that. So I just basically want to go over the development process. So the first thing is committing. I mean, this is all in the README, so I mean, I'm going to kind of just go over the README and answer any questions that you guys have. But when you're going out and you're doing this, we use a tool called Commitison. So if you're wondering where these prompts are coming from, that's what we're using as part of this. It's an NPM script that we run. So everything basically is kind of run through NPM. So when you're making changes, you're doing NPM run commit instead of git commit. The reason for that is it's going to go through the Commitison thing, and the Commitison will actually ask you some questions, like, a short, brief sentence of what you fixed, any longer descriptions. It'll ask you like the components, so like, if you frequently are making changes to the less, your component is less, or if you're frequently making build changes to package JSON, so you can kind of see these changes. And then what this does is when we run through the actual publishing of the module and the merging, we get a change log that prints it, and based on what you say, whether you get a chore, a bug fix, a task, or a new feature, or a documentation task, it allows the publishing aspect or the publishing system to know, oh, okay, I need to increment this from, we're currently on version 13, and you need to go from 13 to 14 because you added a breaking change. Or no, you just added a bug fix, so 13.0.1. Oh, another bug fix, 13.0.2. And so we don't have to really manage that in terms of the actual released NPM module. One thing in here is the longer description. There is actually, so Commitison has plugins. There is a Jira Commitison plugin, but it's broken, unfortunately. And mute this. It broke it. There was a problem when we did this. I think it may have been resolved recently, but to get our link for like what you're fixing in Jira and have Jira pick it up as the commit, you just, when you get prompted for longer description, it says like, did you fix any tasks in there? Just put the Jira ticket number in there, and that way you'll get that link in Jira like you normally do.
Yeah, the other way I was doing it was when the first prompt, when it says, you know, what's the topic of this commit, just put the number in there.
Yeah, that's a good way to do it too. Yeah. So as long as you get it in there somewhere, it'll be part of your commit message, and it will hopefully get picked up. I'd like to in the future. The Jira one is a lot simpler. The one that we're using right now is the one that Angular uses, and it's kind of verbose. But the other one was broken, so if it's fixed, maybe we'll fix it. We'll update that later. So when you're actually doing development, it's like I said, there is no git flow process. So just check out like normal, you know, check out with a branch. Same pattern as always. I just did temp here, you know, temp, THX number, whatever. And then you're just going to go along. The major thing is when you're done all your changes, you don't run the git. That's the key thing. Just run npm run commit. It's the one major change. And then you go through the normal process, create your pull request. When it's done, merge it, you know, and then there's just, you basically have to do like a promotion publishing process, you know, publishing the module now that you've got your changes in master. So we'll just skip down to that real quick.
On the publishing side, so when Tim does a release, he tags all of the repos with the tag of that release, so 13.110. I didn't see those in there.
Nope.
And I don't see any of Tim's commits, so is that
This
intentional, or
yep,
is that?
This is intentional. This is completely separate from the build process, from the release process. This is only for how we build the product. It's not tied to any of that. Tim doesn't even need to worry about it. So we're the custodians of this, which is why we're telling everybody about it. It's not something he has to version along with the product.
So if we were ever to like go back, we need to build 12.10 patch.
Yeah. So yeah, in that case, when you check out THX or Analytics or whatever, and you check those out, their package JSON is pointing at a specific version.
So you're relying on the NPM version for that.
Yeah. And that is checked in the source control. So when you check that back out, it'll download the correct one. To your point, normal development, you don't want to we didn't want to constantly run into the same thing where we made a change to the one front end build, so now we got to go update all 6 repos that have it right now. So when we made this, all of the repos are using the tilde version or the upper caret version, which is basically use the leftmost non-zero digit number. So we're on 13.0 right now. So anything that is under 13.0, so 13.0.1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever that is, that will just get picked up every day if there's a change. But once we switch, maybe we haven't done the actual release for version 13 yet. We might bump it, we might not. There's actually no need to because this is separate from our release process, so we don't have to do that. And it's kind of just let it do its own thing because it's semantically version.
Something on a major release, then you would technically need to increment that.
Technically, no.
Okay.
Because if nothing changed in the one front end build, there's nothing to change.
But if we did bump it to 14.
To actually get that version.
Yeah, if we bump it to 14, yes, we would have to go to all the repos and say we explicitly want to go to 14.
Yes.
But again, that's always a conscious decision. Like we may run way ahead with the one front end build and never actually want to use it in our normal THX builds yet. We may just, we just want to get these features in because we have time or whatever. But we're not ready to use those in actual.
So going back to this whole release, going back in time thing, if I remember right, we do not specify in the NPM, packages. We don't have duplicated, and we don't have the specific package numbers all the way down to the final digit. So we either use the tilde or the squiggly technical term. And I just worry that if we were ever to go back in time, Nexus Central or something else had changed that package version and there was some sort of bug that was changed along the way, that we sort of pick that up unintentionally. And so I'm sort of like, maybe this is something that we just live with. It sounds like that we have, but
Yeah, so
if you go from like a continuous integration perspective, that's a no-no.
yeah, so let's back up. All of our dependencies for THX Analytics, One UI, all of those are specified as hard dependencies in the one front-end build. Transitive dependencies, though, are not shrink wraps. We had that bug a few weeks ago where we did a normal install and a transitive dependency way down the chain broke everything. We went to do shrink wrapping, but with the way that we wanted to extend our gulp configurations, like the CRM needed a different build pattern than the one front-end build had. It wanted to use portions of it, and it wanted the same dependencies, but it also needed to extend it a little bit. So the way the one front-end build, and Kai, feel free to chime in here because you and Jaime had a little bit more ideas around this, but we made it so that you could extend the gulp configuration. Unfortunately, if you shrink wrap gulp and how NPM works, you can't then get the same instance of the gulp that the one front end build has. So the gulp CLI says you don't have a local gulp instance and we can't work. And this is in a shrink wrap scenario. And what a shrink wrap scenario is basically what you're concerned with.
Yeah, that's what
we reinstall. We haven't changed our versions of anything, but we do a clean install all the time. And we depend on gulp and say gulp as a dependency on a tilde version somewhere. And its dependencies, it pulls in that transitive dependency and breaks everything. Shrink wrapping would lock that in place, but unfortunately that means we can't extend it when we actually want to, like in the CRM. Gulp, before I put out, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of those issues where the JavaScript community is still figuring this out. But if we end up in a situation where one of our transitive dependencies breaks our gulp, everybody is going to be dealing with that. So it generally gets fixed pretty quickly because it's a relatively global size issue. The more of these global size issues we get, like the one that we got a month ago, and then the one that we got 6 months ago that was particularly bad with LeftPad. The more of those we get, the more best practice will continue to push on explicit version dependencies, even for some of these larger projects. But we'll, in the meantime, I think we can live with the risk, and if we do end up having a problem, those problems generally, we will not be alone. If we have the problem, there are a lot of people that are having the problem, and it generally does get fixed pretty quickly. And we've only really seen it, well, the one major one 6 months ago, and then the kind of minor one a month ago. Those are the only two instances I can think of that we've run across it since we've been using NPM for our build, which has been now it's about 2 years. So the risk is pretty minimal, and both of those scenarios were fixed within a half a day.
I'm more concerned about the having to go back in time thing. So once we get shorter release cycles, it will be less of an issue. But if some package drops out of the NPM Maven repositories or gets modified along the way.
That can't happen.
That can't happen.
NPM does not.
That's a fundamental standard of NPM, is that you can't overwrite a release and you can't remove. It's generally considered bad practice to remove a release. That's what happened with LeftPad. And
Yeah, I know it's frowned upon, but I didn't think it was locked in.
Yeah, no, NPM enforces it now. They
They
won't.
changed that. Okay.
Yeah, they won't allow package owners to delete their stuff anymore.
Okay.
And they will retain them.
All right, cool.
Because, everybody has a LeftPad sparked all that.
Yep.
And that was, and that was the, and that was the result, is you can no longer, you can't overwrite an already published version and you can't delete published version.
One other thing to keep in mind is that we are running our build through our NPM mirror. And our NPM mirror pulls in the projects. And with that LeftPad scenario, we actually would not have been affected by it at all, if I recall, because our NPM mirror wouldn't have the removed package, because it would have found it on our mirror and it would not have asked NPM for the update. So we do have a little bit of, we have one layer of protection against some of those shenanigans, but yeah, I think NPM has changed there.
Conversely,
About it.
Conversely, we also do have a problem with our NPM Nexus repo, which is when it invalidates a cache. So if we do pull in a bad package like we had a few weeks ago, it took us an extra day to get it into our builds because we couldn't invalidate the cache and get the new one from NPM public.
That's something that we could do very easily, because we are explicitly in our POMs where we do the builds, we're explicitly setting a 24-hour cache.
No, this was on the NPM. I couldn't refresh the package on our NPM Nexus.
You should open one of those new help desk tickets.
Actually, the one I had open got closed, and they told me to go talk to the help desk one.
No, that's what I just saw that today.
Oh,
Where
okay.
Ronnie closed it after like a few months of it being open. And
Yeah.
then told you to use the new help desk.
So, but so development, like I said, the only thing is you just want to be, actually before we get to the publishing thing, when you're developing, the major thing is NPM run commit. You're not publishing though, so when you want to do the NPM installs and everything like that, NPM link's pretty simple. This is basically saying you go into your one front-end build repo, and you just say NPM link, and then you go into whichever project you're testing the use case in, say it's analytics or THX, and you say NPM link one front-end build. It creates a global symlink to your package, so when NPM sees that, it doesn't go out doesn't make network requests for our NPM cache. It goes out and gets it from the symlink, so just basically hops over to your local directory. So you can test it locally without publishing versions all you want. Maybe you need to test with a Tiny though. It's a little bit different. We just kept the convention that Kai started when we originally started doing this, which was check out your branch, but make a change by versioning your one front-end build to your ticket number. So that's the command there, npm version your ticket number. In this case, 20784 is some JIRA ticket number. And then you can publish that. So what that gives you is now you have a version that will never be impacted by us incrementally going through. And you can keep bumping that version to check on tinies and stuff like that. So you would branch out, you would make this change with npm version, and you would publish it. Now there will be a version up in our Nexus repo for 20784. Then your dependent, say it's THX, you would then say, I want to use my 20784 version. And then go through your normal dev process, commit as usual. The thing is you're going to want to run npm run dev publish. So if you're making changes, right? So you're doing, git npm run commit, making a change. You then want to test it on the tiny. We made this command npm run dev publish. What that will do is it'll look at your commit async history, and say, oh, okay, he made a bug fix, so it'll bump it, from 20784.0.0 to 20784.0.1 and publish that for you, so you don't have to go through those steps manually. The major thing though is when before you go to merge it back into master, you just revert your NPM version, because we don't want to all of a sudden bump our NPM version on master. That part definitely could use some work, so if anybody has ideas around it, please feel free to come up with something. So once you're done your work and you've got your PR approved, I put this back in here, but if you did make the change to the package JSON, revert it back, check it out, make sure you have all the latest things, do your merge, and if everything's good, and you don't have any problems locally after your merge, there's this command to run npm post merge, and it's the branch name that you merged in. And this is kind of telling you what it does. It gives us that change log which we wanted, so we can kind of see what was changed. It updates the package JSON based on what you changed. If it's 13.0.0 and you added a new feature, 13.1.0. It tags it in Git, so we can kind of say, oh, okay, this is what that version correlates to what commit on the branch, and then it pushes everything out.
So when we're in this scenario where we have a patches branch going on as well as master, how is the version going to be handled with that?
Yeah, merging and publishing with patches. So basically, if that's normal, so you would make your fix on patches. You would then do your normal announcement that you're merging in patches or whatever. You'll rebase it, and then there's a command there. So basically, you're basically saying, I want to merge in my patch branch.
So we should only ever publish when our changes are on master. Otherwise, what happens if we do a publish?
You can publish this version. These versions are each independent and can each go in, and you are pointing at a specific version from your patches branch. So this repo will always go in before your THX repo, whatever repo, and then in your patches branch, wherever it is, it's pointing to a version of the front-end build that is a fully specified version.
Because this is separate from our development.
Our normal dev, yeah.
Yeah, okay, that's fine, that's good.
Yeah, and so that merge patch does some things there to help out with that process.
Okay, that's good.
And this is merge into.
So when you have a fix, right, that exists and that you need to patch, but you also want it, the normal thing is, just like normal dev, you fix it on patches, and then you merge patches up to master.
This will do it both for us, right? Is that last?
Yeah, that's what that's for. You basically, you check it out, and you're basically saying, because you're going to have your patches branch besides your master branch. So you're basically saying, I want to merge my patches branch into master, and it will do that. Now, it says, patch branch name here, because it's 12.1 patches, 13.1 patches, 14.1 patches. It's just saying which patch branch you want to merge.
Okay, all right, not your
fix branch.
Okay.
Because you would check out patches, and then you'd branch off that to make all your testing, and then once you got that approved, you'd merge that into patches. And then you'd go, okay, now I'm going to merge patches into master. Cool. So that patch branch name is basically, what is it? 13.1, 12.1, 1.1, whatever it is.
I'm going to put a little example.
What's that?
For that, number 3, I'm going to just add a little example. So just like patch branch name would be 13 or whatever. Just so that people don't get confused.
Okay.
So one front end build will not end up having a patches branch. Although.
We haven't got there. I don't remember what our discussion was. Kai, do you remember if we were going to have a patches branch?
Well, yes. I think the answer is kind of if we need to.
We had talked about it with Sam, but we didn't have a need for it, especially since you're publishing specific versions.
Yeah, I mean the problem becomes when we go to actually do a release, the releases need to have static versions, or else our releases will get influenced by things upstream. And then, of course, if there's a bug in the build that needs to also be going. I mean, I think the bottom line, what we kind of got to was that, generally speaking, Patches doesn't need any update for the one front-end build, because at that point, the build it's building. It's not actually providing any functionality to the release itself. It's just providing the build functionality to build the project. But I suppose there could be a scenario where we need it. So
Yeah, no, you're right. Yeah, because this isn't impacting a customer. If you find,
I don't agree how we get to the versioning stuff, but yeah, I mean, from the way I see it, I don't think we do.
yeah, it's there. We put it in there because they're like, I think we had a scenario, but I think it was still few far in between, because we're not actually delivering this to anybody. It's just how we package things up, so. Definitely, it was a first for me, and the community is still struggling with things. So if you have any suggestions, please do them. Any bug fixes too. And there's another thing too, I mean, it's ES6. If you guys want to start writing ES6, feel free to pick this stuff up and write in ES6 so you can get along with that if we ever do that in our local code base. I just know we'd had that up there for a while, so I wanted to just kind of get it out there. So any other questions?
One kind of final observation is, in general, we shouldn't be doing too much on this repository at all. It should be relatively stable and static project, with maybe a couple tweaks here and there as we run into bugs, but the development cycle on this should be pretty much maintenance only at this point.
Yeah. All right, cool.
Great. Anything else that people wanted to just throw out there? We have one, or do we have maybe 5 minutes? So.
Yeah, get that list stuff done. Sorry, I couldn't resist.
What an asshole.
Well, just an update, we merged down from Nucleus today, and every single list is broken.
Oh,
We're not front end, back end.
Good win, right?
Yeah, now you got it.
100%. That is good.
That's fantastic.
Have you talked to Bill about that?
Yeah, I just got that, so.
Cool.
I wasn't throwing Vortex under the bus, it's just.
I was.
It wasn't for that purpose, it's just been a reoccurring theme.
Sorry, I'm just busting.
It's okay. Don't worry, we're saving it for tonight.
I know, right? Tonight I'm gonna get it hard.
Just start booing as soon as you get up.
All right, everybody. See ya. Thank you.